Hi, beautiful people. Hi, beautiful people. I hope that you guys are having a good Monday. I'm gonna run this for you real quick, and I'm gonna get right into it. It's pretty self-explanatory. The United Nations response to the Israel-U.S. strike. Let me play that for you right now. Let me see. Okay. What's good, Chakra King Black? I see you.
Mr. President, history has taught us never to ignore those who openly call for our destruction. When a regime says it will destroy Israel, when it chants death to Israel, when it promises to wipe Haifa and Tel Aviv off the map, we believe it. We genuinely believe it. When we see those hundreds of ballistic missiles that they are launching to Israel, we believe the threats. We do not ignore them. We do not gamble with our survival. We act. Now let me address the brave people of Iran. You are not our enemies. This operation is not directed at you. It is directed at a regime that has silenced you, imprisoned you, and invested in missiles and uranium while your economy suffers. You deserve better. It is this regime, the Basij, the Revolutionary Guard, who have dragged your country into isolation. The world does not fear a free Iran. It fears a radical regime armed with nuclear weapons and driven by extremism. Your future should not be defined by those who chant for death. As President Trump had said, the Iranian people deserve dignity, security, and the chance to shape their own destiny. We are thinking about you. You are seen. You are not alone. The future of Iran belongs to its people. We stand with you. Mr. President, this week, Jewish families all around the world celebrate Purim. Many Israelis will do so now in a bomb shelter. The story of Purim happened more than 2,500 years ago in the same place. In ancient Persia, an evil minister by the name of Haman sought to wipe out the Jewish people. And it began with words, with chants. It became a decree. It could have become a genocide. But Queen Esther refused to remain silent. She stepped forward. She spoke up. She acted before it was too late. That is the lesson we learned. It is not only an ancient lesson, it is a modern one. Last week, I stood at the gates of Auschwitz with dozens of UN ambassadors. We stood in a place that shows what happens when radicalism and extremism grows and no one stops it in time. Before the Holocaust, some leaders, serious leaders, believed that they could calm aggression with concessions. They were completely wrong. Giving in did not stop evil. It strengthened it. Winston Churchill understood what Queen Esther understood long before him. When destruction is declared and weapons are being prepared and assembled, leaders must act, not later, now. Today, President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu understand that same lesson. For decades, the Iranian regime has built missiles, enriched uranium, armed proxies, and spread terror far beyond its borders. This regime is not only Israel's enemy, it is an enemy of stability, an enemy of every peace-loving nation. In this joint operation, Israel and the US are acting together, not because we see conflict, because we refuse to ignore declared destruction. We are stopping extremism before it becomes unstoppable. We will ensure that no radical regime armed with nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles can threaten our people or the entire world. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Israel for the statement. I will now give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Majed A. Abdulaziz, Permanent Observer of the League of Arab States to the United Nations.
شكرا.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the presidency for convening this emergency session today. I also extend my thanks to the Secretary General for his powerful and comprehensive briefing. The Security Council convenes today at a pivotal moment in the history of the United Nations, a moment that unfortunately represents a glaring failure of the multilateral international system, a failure the League of Arab States has long warned against. Regrettably, it is a moment in which the Arab-Israeli conflict has expanded into a full-scale regional war, through which Israel seeks, through this escalation, to evade ending its occupation of Palestinian territories, to prevent the establishment of an independent Palestinian state, and to obstruct Palestine's admission to the UN in implementation of the two-state solution and the core principles of international legitimacy. Israel has done so by expanding the scope of its brutal military aggression against the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank, by intensifying its efforts to annex the West Bank, and through repeated military attacks on Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and Iran, all in a misguided attempt that is categorically rejected both regionally and internationally to impose Israel's hegemony on the Middle East by using military means. Even if it is at the expense of the member states of the League of Arab States and at the expense of the suffering of their peoples under Israeli policies and attacks aimed at imposing the law of force instead of the force of law. At the Council's previous meeting on this item last week, the Foreign Minister of Israel, the occupying power, made extremist religious assertions, thus offering clear evidence of the arrogance of Israel, which seeks to impose its own extremist religious interpretation on the word, claiming that all Palestinian land, including the West Bank, which cannot be annexed under President Trump's plan and under Security Council's Resolution 2803, all this Palestinian land has belonged to Israel for thousands of years. Such claims reflect an unmistakable contempt for the legal, historical, and foundational principles upon which international legitimacy have been built in this council and in this organization. Despite the announcement 2 days ago in Geneva that negotiations between the United States and Iran on the Iranian nuclear file has made some progress, Israel has blatantly disregarded all these developments in pursuit of narrow, self-serving interests. It has launched a wanton military attack at dawn today against the Islamic Republic of Iran, claiming that the attack was intended to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. At the same time, Israel itself refuses to join the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. It refuses to subject its nuclear facilities to the IAEA's comprehensive safeguards regime, and it refuses at the same time to attend the United Nations Conference on the establishment of a Middle East zone free of nuclear weapons and other WMDs. That conference, held for the seventh consecutive year at the United Nations last November, with the active participation of the Islamic Republic of Iran in all its sessions, and with the continued boycott of Israel and one permanent member of this council. This Israeli boycott of this important conference is clear although the conference seeks to achieve the same goal, which is to eliminate the ambiguous nuclear capabilities, both Israeli and Iranian. And this Israeli stand reflects the fact that Israel wants to remain the only state acquiring ambiguous nuclear capabilities in the Middle East and capable of producing nuclear weapons, which is something that Middle East countries cannot accept. Mr. President, despite all the above, the clear escalation among all parties amounts to a cowardly and unjustified military assault by the Islamic Republic of Iran on several Arab states that are members of the League of Arab States. This escalation threatens to widen the scope of the military conflict and risks igniting a full-scale regional war. The General Secretariat of the League of Arab States have issued an official statement from which I quote: "The General Secretariat of the League of Arab States strongly condemns the Iranian attacks on the State of Qatar, the Kingdom of Bahrain, the State of Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan." And I add the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Syria, and Lebanon. These missile attacks constitute a blatant violation of the sovereignty of states that advocate for peace and have worked to advance stability and did not participate in the war. The General Secretariat expresses full solidarity with these Arab states in confronting these attacks and affirms its support for any measures they take to defend themselves and to protect their populations. The Secretariat stresses that Arab states have taken clear positions regarding the Iranian crisis by rejecting military action against Tehran. Several Arab states exerted tremendous efforts to further mediation and to prevent the escalation we are witnessing today. The General Secretariat is deeply concerned by the grave dangers posed by the current situation in the region. It calls upon all influential parties in the international community to act immediately to de-escalate as quickly as possible, to prevent the expansion of regional instability and violence, and return immediately to dialogue. End of quote. In conclusion, Mr. President, the League of Arab States joins the Secretary General of the United Nations in urging all states to respect their obligations under international law, including the UN Charter, which clearly prohibits the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, and prohibits any use of force inconsistent with the purposes and principles of the United Nations, especially when it involves attacking nuclear facilities, which could have catastrophic consequences for entire populations. The League also joins the United Nations in calling for an immediate cessation of hostilities and de-escalation to prevent a wider regional conflict that would have dire repercussions for regional stability in the Middle East. From this standpoint, the League of Arab States urges the Security Council, particularly with the United States assuming the Council's presidency beginning tomorrow, to lead the collective security regime to immediately halt military operations and to return to negotiations on all tracks, inspired by the positive momentum generated by last week's Board of Peace meeting and by the role of President Trump in advancing global peace and in full respect for the established mechanisms of the multilateral international system, far from any geopolitical confrontations that will only prevent us from achieving global peace. Thank you, President.
I thank His Excellency, Mr. Abdulaziz, for the statement. The representative of the United States has asked for the floor to make a further statement.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I wish to exercise my right of reply to the so-called representative of the Iranian regime. The United States strongly rejects this ridiculous and frankly farcical assertion that U.S. actions are inconsistent with international law. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted, quote, "Death to America," at every turn, at every opening of its parliament. It has sought to eradicate the state of Israel. It has waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder. It is responsible for a series of unprovoked armed attacks targeting the United States and Israel, violations of the UN Charter, and threats to international peace and security across the Middle East. It has even attempted to assassinate the US president, President Trump. It has done so not only directly, but through its proxies, seeking to hide and mask its bad actions while publicly claiming to be a victim. Iran's menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, our partners, our allies around the world. The United States has made every effort to negotiate a peaceful resolution of this conflict with Iran, but Iran has failed to take that opportunity. So in close coordination with the government of Israel, the United States has taken lawful actions to address these threats in line with Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations. And Mr. President, I'll just say on a final note, you know who is not complaining tonight? You know who is not citing the vagaries of international law? You know who is celebrating in the streets around the world? The Iranian people. Mr. President, maybe, perhaps just maybe, they will finally be free. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. The representative of Bahrain has also asked for the floor to make a further statement. I give them the floor.
شكرا سيد الرئيس وعذر.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for taking the floor once again. I would like to reread a paragraph from the statement of the GCC countries, Jordan and Syria. Accurately, it is as follows, and I quote, as we have pointed out in the letter addressed to you today, a number of Iranian missile attacks have targeted today the UAE, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the State of Qatar, the State of Kuwait, and my country, the Kingdom of Bahrain, and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, and the Syrian Arab Republic, in a flagrant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of these countries. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Bahrain for the statement. The representative of Iran has asked for the floor to make a further statement.
Thank you. I have one word only. I advise to the representative of the United States to be polite. It will be better for yourself and the country you represented. Thank you.
The representative of the United States has asked for the floor to make a further statement.
Frankly, I'm not going to dignify this with another response, especially as this representative sits here in this body representing a regime that has killed tens of thousands of its own people and imprisoned many more simply for wanting freedom from your tyranny. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. Before adjourning the meeting, as this is really the last meeting of our presidency in the month of February, I would just like to express my thanks on behalf of the delegation of the United Kingdom to members of the Council, the Secretary General, and members of the Secretariat for all their support this month. The meeting is adjourned.
All right. Hang on, you guys. First, for our country, there is a lot that is going on. Hang on, you guys. Let me see.
Everyone, I'm Errol Barnett at the CBS Broadcast Center here in New York City. Thanks for joining our continuing coverage here on Ali Khamenei at the hands of the U.S. and Israeli military. It's reverberating throughout the Middle East. In addition to the Ayatollah, some 40 other senior members of his regime are also dead. After announcing what the U.S. is calling Operation Epic Fury, President Trump says now's the time for the Iranian people to rise up and reclaim their country. But Iran's foreign minister says the Islamic Republic regime will not be defeated. Those words backed up today with retaliatory strikes from Iran targeting Israel and several countries in the Gulf region hosting American military bases. This war with Iran is already proving to be deadly for the U.S. as well. This morning, Central Command reports 3 service members killed in action, with 5 others seriously wounded as part of Operation Epic Fury. Earlier, President Trump discussed the attack in a fresh new video posted on Truth Social. Take a look.
An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be a dire threat to every American. We cannot allow a nation that raises terrorist armies to possess such weapons, would allow them to extort the world to their evil will. Not going to let it happen. We're not happening to us, and we're not going to let it happen to others. The United States has the strongest military the world has ever seen. I rebuilt our military in my first term. There's never been a military like we possess. And frankly, there's nobody even close, but we are now using that military for good. We want to have it for good purpose. We're undertaking this massive operation not merely to ensure security for our own time and place, but for our children and their children, just as our ancestors have done for us many, many years ago. This is the duty and the burden of a free people. These actions are right, and they are necessary to ensure that Americans will never have to face a radical, bloodthirsty terrorist regime armed with nuclear weapons and lots of threats. For almost 50 years, these wicked extremists have been attacking the United States while chanting the slogan, "Death to America," or "Death to Israel," or both. They are the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. We are the world's greatest and most powerful nation, so we can do something about what they do. These intolerable threats will not continue any longer. I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, police, to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death.
Our senior national security correspondent, Charlie Daggett, filed this report on escalating hostilities from Tel Aviv.
Iran began 40 days of mourning for Ayatollah Ali Khamenei after state-run media confirmed that he was killed at his Tehran compound. His successor has been announced as Alireza Arafi to lead a temporary council, but who's really in charge and where they can even meet safely is another matter. Israel Defense Forces released this video today, claiming to show multiple airstrikes blowing up Iranian government headquarters this morning. CBS News cannot independently verify that claim. Intelligence sources tell CBS News as many as 40 senior Iranian officials were killed in the first wave of strikes. Iran's Islamic Republican Guard Corps vowed revenge, saying they've launched the most ferocious offensive operation in the history of the Iranian armed forces towards the occupied territories and American terrorist bases. On day 2 of the war, nearby Gulf state allies have already borne the brunt of multiple drone and missile strikes, though none as hard as Israel itself. An Iranian missile strike overnight in the heart of Tel Aviv left a woman in her 40s dead and more than 40 injured, including 7 children.
Throughout the night, air raid sirens and text messages sent residents here scrambling for their bomb shelters. This missile managed to get through one of the most advanced missile defense systems in the world, and that's what's causing concern among U.S. forces here.
U.S. military officials tell CBS News that forces from U.S. Central Command continue to launch airstrikes and cruise missiles against Iran, targeting Iranian air defenses, launchers and missile stockpiles, and Iranian regime infrastructure in coordination with Israeli defense forces.
Today, the U.S. Embassy here in Israel changed its advisory to American citizens here, saying the embassy is not in a position to evacuate or directly assist Americans in departing Israel, directing that all U.S. government employees and their family members shelter in place in or near their residences until further notice.
CBS News has confirmed the CIA had been tracking Iran's supreme leader for months, and it gained advanced insight into a Saturday morning meeting of senior Iranian officials, which accelerated the timeline for this strike. CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis joins me now from our DC bureau to discuss this intel and how it played a role. Olivia, explain for us the timeline, because we'd been reporting for weeks that the U.S. was preparing for this type of operation with Air Force carrier strike groups in the region. But what information really tipped the U.S. to strike Sunday?
Right, Errol, this was the culmination of a months-long intelligence gathering effort that was focused on one of the hardest targets in the world, Iran's supreme leader. Khamenei was known to move around frequently and unpredictably because of his value as an intelligence target. And from that standpoint, Iran has long been described as a black box. It's got a closed, opaque system that makes insight into its top leadership exceptionally difficult. But in the weeks following Operation Midnight Hammer last spring, the CIA was able to build a clearer picture of how and where Khamenei was operating. According to a person familiar with the matter that we spoke with today, the agency tracked his movements for months, gaining more and more fidelity on his location and as he moved. And then recently, we haven't been able to learn exactly when, there was a key break. Intelligence learned that Khamenei was expected at a Saturday morning meeting along with senior officials at this compound in Tehran. And that information was shared with Israeli counterparts, and according to our source, it moved up the timeline for an Israeli missile strike on that compound in order to capitalize on the opportunity presented by this senior level gathering.
Any operation like this carries with it serious risks. And today we've got the confirmation that 3 U.S. service members were killed, 5 others seriously injured during this operation. Do we have any sense of where they may have been stationed?
Well, that is the latest that we're learning this morning from U.S. Central Command, Errol. The first known confirmed U.S. casualties in this operation, 5 individuals seriously injured and several others suffering what we are told were shrapnel injuries and concussions. But there are major combat operations still underway, obviously, and officials are stressing that the situation remains fluid. Unfortunately, these numbers can and probably will increase, as the president himself warned in his original online address. We don't at this point have additional information right now about where the officers were stationed or their names. The Pentagon has said that it would release that information after their families have been notified.
And as you note, Olivia, after the U.S. Israeli strikes on Iran, there have been counterstrikes from Iran. It's still ongoing now. Meanwhile, Iranian leaders have indicated they may choose a new supreme leader in the next few days. What might regime change look like, and how quickly could it even happen as this is all still unfolding right now?
Absolutely. It's the central question, I think. When Secretary Rubio was asked it exactly a month ago, his answer was telling: no one knows. I think that picture is only getting a little bit clearer now, both because intelligence agencies have been explicitly tasked with mapping out possible succession scenarios, and because these recent strikes have, quite frankly, removed many of the regime figures who might have stepped into power to replace the supreme leader. President Trump told CBS News and other outlets that he believes that diplomacy with Iran may now be be getting easier, and even suggested that there were, quote, in his words, good candidates to lead Iran after the supreme leader's death, but he hasn't identified any of them publicly. This morning, the Republican Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Tom Cotton acknowledged that there's intense internal jockeying underway in Tehran as different figures are positioning themselves in this deliberative process to replace the Ayatollah, including some who may be trying to become, as he put it, the Delcy Rodriguez of Iran, which is a reference, of course, to the transition we have been seeing there in Venezuela after the U.S. intervened there.
Right, Olivia Gazis, we appreciate your reporting, joining us from Washington.
Thank you.
Now, in that new Truth Social video, the president also spoke about the 3 service members who were killed in Operation Epic Fury. Listen.
As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives.
CBS News White House correspondent Willie James Inman is following the president. He's in West Palm Beach, Florida for us this morning. Willie James, good afternoon to you. What have we heard from the president today?
Hey there, Errol. The president's actually posting just moments ago on True Social, and I want to bring up that statement from the president so our viewers can see it, essentially giving a battle damage report from the field. He said he has just been informed we have destroyed and sunk 9 Iranian naval ships, some of them relatively large and important. We are going after the rest. They will soon be floating at the bottom of the sea. Also, in a different attack, we largely destroyed their naval headquarters. Other than that, their Navy is doing very well. Now, the president has been working the phones with other world leaders, talking to regional leaders, but also speaking to members of the media, including our own Robert Costa, as Olivia mentioned. The president saying in that interview last night with Bob Costa, saying that it was a great day for this country, a great day for the world, in reference to what took place yesterday when the U.S. and Israel launched the strikes against Iran, which led to the death of the Ayatollah, also led to the death of several members of Iran's regime. The president also saying to The Atlantic today that he will be speaking and agreed to talk to the Iranians. We, of course, know that there have been negotiations ongoing. Those negotiations appear to have broken down, leading to this moment. In large part, the U.S., the president, wanted Iran to curb its nuclear program, including enrichment and the ballistic missile program, part of that, those conversations as well. But that statement today coming from the president saying that perhaps the U.S. And Israelis were involved in this, but saying that we have destroyed and sunk 9 Iranian naval ships. The latest statement coming there from the President of the United States on his social media platform.
And how is the White House justifying these strikes, considering those indirect talks have been ongoing preceding this weekend?
Yeah, there have been many questions about this, and I'll note that the president's statement that he gave was one that wasn't broadcast or recorded by us, meaning the media, the reporters who travel with him. So we weren't able to engage and ask him questions, although he is taking some of these phone calls, speaking to reporters over the phone at least. But senior administration officials did brief members of the media without taking questions. They talked about the breakdown in those negotiations. In large part, the president wanted to curb that program, as I mentioned. But the ballistic missile program, which we of course know is a threat to not only the region, but to close ally Israel. Senior administration officials say that the Iranians did not want to engage on conversations surrounding that ballistic missile program. All of what happened and took place in those negotiations led by Steve Witkoff, the special envoy, and the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, that information was given to the president. And senior administration officials saying that POTUS frankly had no choice but to act.
All right, Willie James Inman with the latest for us out of West Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you. Congress is scrambling to learn more about President Trump's decision to strike Iran, and there are efforts underway to set up member briefings next week. You're looking at CBS News congressional reporter Torian Small in our DC bureau with the latest on this. Torian, typically when any president wages war, he gets the support of Congress. It did not appear to happen this time. So what are lawmakers being told so far, and what questions do they want answers to?
Well, Errol, we know that the Gang of Eight was given the heads up by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The degree of which the operation was told to them varies depending on who you talk to. But I do want to point out what Senate ranking member on the Senate Intel Committee, who's a part of this, Mark Warner, had to say. He said, even though, all can be true about Iran, Ayatollah, about them being state sponsors of terrorism, that still doesn't relieve the president of his duty to talk to Congress and get authorization for war. I also believe Greg Meeks, the ranking member on the House Affairs Committee, said something similar to that fact, saying that those operations that the president is undertaking through his administration, including destabilization of the nuclear weapons program, crushing its proxy network, and instituting a regime change, are not a limited operation. And all those things encompasses what he will believe to be authorization through Congress that the president is circumventing. Now, presidents in the past, for the past 25 years, in fact, have done so through the authorization of AUMF, the authorization of use of military force. That was a 2001 law after 9/11 that many have used, but now we're seeing this resurgence or a renewed effort to push through a war powers resolution through Congress that this will likely inspire again. In fact, Thomas Massie, the Republican from Kentucky, is looking to push through a similar piece of legislation very soon, Errol.
And Torian, of course, our viewers would expect that members of Congress are sharply divided over this, with Democrats calling President Trump's strike illegal, Republicans defending his decision. I just want to show some reactions that aired on Face the Nation.
This operation is driven by intelligence collected by Israel and the United States that has once again proven that our nations have capabilities that no other nation on earth has. We would all celebrate if the Iranian people were able to rise up and reclaim their freedom and reclaim their destiny.
This is a disaster. It is illegal. And the president is obligated under the Constitution to come to Congress and ask for an authorization of military force. He wouldn't get that authorization if he asked for it. Congress wouldn't vote to give him the permission to do it, but he's obligated to come to Congress.
So, Torian, with reactions like that, how tangible is this push on Capitol Hill to challenge or limit the president's war powers?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real possibility that we'll see that renewed push. This was a similar conversation many lawmakers, including, surprisingly, Republican Senator from Missouri, his name is slipping me now, but it was a part of this push. He got assurances from the Trump administration to ultimately vote against it during the Venezuela operation by the U.S. military. Right now, we're seeing, again, Thomas Massie, Ro Khanna, these strange bedfellows of sorts, this very liberal Republican and progressive Democrats coming together to push forth a war powers resolution. Considering the threshold, though, the likelihood that that'll actually pass both chambers and then be signed into the law without a veto from the president is still highly unlikely, Errol.
All right. You had those Republican senators from Missouri as Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt. Was that the name you're looking for?
Hawley, yes.
All right. All right. Thank you, Torian. I appreciate you.
Tonight, America attacks Iran.
I'd love to get into that tonight, what was about to play, but I can't because of the time. But I have something for you before I go. What are you guys' thoughts? Was the United States right for joining Israel and bombing Iran? I can't get into that one tonight, but
now reporting that Iran's supreme leader Khamenei has now been killed in these strikes. And so for folks who are just now joining us, you're going to continue to give you these updates and some of the fallout that has been happening in the aftermath. This just in from the Associated Press talking about what's happening regionally there, that hundreds of people are now demonstrating in Baghdad in support of Iran against those attacks that were launched by Israel and the United States.
Breaking tonight, U.S. troops killed in the Middle East with a new round of missile strikes and new word from the president on how long this operation could last. What we're learning about the deaths of American service members as you see smoke rising from explosions hitting the heart of Tehran. In Israel, casualties reported as Iran fires back. Today, these newly released videos from the U.S. military. More missile launches from a Navy ship and strikes on key Iranian facilities. Tonight, President Trump telling NBC News Operation Epic Fury is ahead of schedule and posting this video.
We grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice, and sadly, there will likely be more before it ends.
His new warning to Iran retaliating tonight, hitting beyond Israel, targeting other Gulf nations. And the question, who will lead Iran with the Ayatollah and dozens of other leaders now dead? Plus, Iran threatening to cut off the world's oil supply. This tanker on fire at sea. What it could all mean for the price of your gas. And passengers left stranded as airports across the Middle East shut down.
NBC Nightly News with
were killed in action. Two officials tell NBC News they were on the second day of this joint U.S.-Israeli war.
And here in the United States, we begin with Richard Engel on the ground in Tel Aviv.
On the second day of this joint U.S.-Israeli war on Iran, Israeli jets pounded what Israeli officials described as military targets in central Tehran. Iran is firing back. And now there are American casualties. U.S. Central Command reported 3 American service members were killed in action. 2 officials tell NBC News they were killed in Kuwait, where the U.S. has large bases.
We grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation.
Tonight, President Trump called on Iran to surrender, saying its military is collapsing.
The entire military command is gone as well, and many of them want to surrender into saving their lives. They want immunity. They're calling by the thousands.
2 officials with direct knowledge of current intelligence tell NBC News the Iranian government no longer controls all of its military and that some units are now operating independently, a potential recipe for chaos. In an interview with Al Jazeera today, Iran's foreign minister acknowledged some units are cut off.
Our military units are now, in fact, independent and somehow isolated.
Israel's defense minister said Israeli jets can now fly over Tehran unopposed, carrying out strikes at will. Explosions ripped through the Iranian capital, home to more than 10 million people. Israel and the United States have been systematically targeting and killing Iran's leaders, including the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. In Tehran today, tens of thousands rallied in Revolution Square to mourn, showing support for the government, even amid the airstrikes. Many here today were calling for revenge. But outside of Tehran, signs that Iran's embattled opposition is feeling emboldened. A few Iranians went out to dance after learning the supreme leader was dead. Iran's main target remains Israel. Today, a ballistic missile hit the town of Beit Shemesh outside of Jerusalem. It was the deadliest attack on Israel since the start of this conflict. All of this damage here was caused by a single ballistic missile that directly hit a shelter. So far, Israeli officials are talking about at least 9 people killed. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today showed he's not afraid, announcing the death of Khamenei to Israelis while standing on top of Israel's Defense Ministry building in Tel Aviv. But there are growing signs that this war could spiral out of control. This oil tanker set on fire off the coast of Oman, and Oman's port attacked, even though the country has tried to broker a peace deal between Iran and the United States.
Richard is joining us now from Tel Aviv. And Richard, you talk about the potential for things to spiral, and already we're seeing conflict erupt in the region more broadly.
Hallie, one thing that I'm watching with great concern tonight is what is happening in Iraq. Iraq shares a border with Iran. The Iranian government has a tremendous amount of influence over what happens inside Iraq. And today, large crowds of pro-Iranian demonstrators tried to enter the so-called green zone and swarm the U.S. embassy. It is something that I know U.S. military officials are watching very closely.
Richard Engel in Tel Aviv, thank you. For more on the military operation and those service members killed, let's bring in Courtney Kube, who's with us here in Washington. And Court, as President Trump is promising to avenge those deaths, you're learning a bit more about the circumstances around what happened.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. At least 3 U.S. troops were killed and 5 seriously injured in an attack in Kuwait earlier today, according to 2 U.S. officials. Now, the troops are part of an Army sustainment unit there. The military is withholding the names of the fallen troops until all of their families have been notified, as is standard. Kuwait's government says they have shot down nearly 100 missiles and 300 drones fired from Iran already. More U.S. troops have been injured in this operation, but including shrapnel wounds, some concussions. But so far, the military says they've been minor and the troops have all been returned to duty.
There had been this question of why now, specifically why Saturday morning, and our team has some new reporting that helps to answer that.
Yeah, finally, we're getting a sense of exactly why this began when it did. The U.S. military usually prefers to conduct these sorts of airstrikes in a hostile environment at night. It provides the element of surprise and often means fewer civilian casualties. But these strikes yesterday were broad daylight. Now, according to 2 sources briefed on the matter, intelligence showed that Iran's supreme leader would be meeting with other senior leaders on Saturday morning, so the U.S. and Israel seized the opportunity to target them all at once. U.S. and Israeli spy agencies have been tracking the Ayatollah's movements for months, and this sustained military campaign is now based on intelligence cooperation between both nations. The U.S. has already hit more than 1,000 targets in Iran so far, Hallie.
Courtney Kube, plenty to watch on your beat. Thank you. Thanks. Also tonight, questions around the Iranian strategy, given that escalation with strikes on other countries in the Middle East. Keir Simmons is in Dubai tonight. Keir, what are you seeing on the ground where you are?
Hallie, after blast, day and night here in Dubai, all through the weekend with missiles and drones intercepted. Today, we are mostly hearing here fighter jets as they clear the skies, and our children, school has been cancelled. We've been hiding in place, but others are just trying to get home. Today, I spoke to a couple from Tennessee who are here for their 20th wedding anniversary. Now they can't get back to their children, to their families. Both of the airports here in the United Arab Emirates has been closed, hit by drones. There is fury in the Arab world here that Oman was targeted after it was trying to mediate talks between the two sides. And meanwhile, the State Department has issued a caution for Americans worldwide. And the U.S. military has branded a claim by Iran that it is only targeting bases as lies. Hallie, all of this illustrates how this can easily spiral. Hallie?
Keir Simmons in Dubai, thank you. Let's talk more about that leadership void in Iran with the Ayatollah now dead. Raf Sanchez is tracking that. And Raf, we know that there's a temporary council that's in place now, right?
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. Iran today announcing that a 3-man leadership council is taking control following the death of the supreme leader. On that council, you have Iran's president, who's democratically elected but doesn't have a whole lot of power. You have Iran's chief justice, who has been sanctioned by the U.S. for human rights abuses. And finally, you have a senior Islamic cleric. Now, their job is to hold the country together until a new supreme leader can be chosen. And tonight, 2 sources tell NBC News that a CIA assessment made before the U.S.-Israeli attacks concluded that Iran's next leader will likely be a hardliner and potentially a member of the elite Revolutionary Guard Corps.
And Raf, the Iranian law is clear that whoever the next leader is, he has to be a man and he has to be a cleric.
Yeah, exactly. And he also has to be elected by a body called the Assembly of Experts. This has 88 members. All of them are religious scholars. You could kind of compare it, Hallie, to the conclave at the Vatican, which elects a new pope. Now, we heard earlier today from the Iranian foreign minister who said that assembly could potentially come together quickly to elect a new leader. But given the wartime chaos in Iran right now, don't be surprised if that turns out to be a longer process. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez, thank you. President Trump has that new warning for Iran tonight, telling its military to lay down their arms or else, in his words, face certain death. Gabe Gutierrez is at the White House.
President Trump tonight with a new warning, saying Iran better not retaliate further, or we will hit them with a force that has never been seen before.
Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved.
The president returning to Washington late today after monitoring this weekend's strikes from his Mar-a-Lago estate. Also speaking today with leaders from Israel, Bahrain, and the UAE. Tonight, he's telling Americans to brace for more American casualties.
And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case.
Now, the president with this message for the Iranian people.
I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country.
Meanwhile, Democrats are furiously pushing back, arguing the president should have consulted Congress before striking Iran.
I think the president has started a war of choice. There was no imminent threat to the United States.
They're now calling for a vote this week to restrict the president's war powers.
He ran because a big part of the MAGA base did not want another war in the Middle East. This is a betrayal of a decent chunk of the MAGA base.
Still, almost all Republicans in Congress are standing by the president's actions.
The mothership of terrorism is sinking. The captain is dead. The largest state sponsor of terrorism, Iran, is close to collapsing.
Gabe is joining us now from the White House North Lawn. And Gabe, some members of Congress have said they want to hear more about these strikes, and it sounds like they will coming up this week.
Yes, Hallie, top administration officials, including Secretary of State Rubio and Defense Secretary Hegseth, are now scheduled to brief Congress about Iran on Tuesday. That's according to a White House official and a congressional official. The House and Senate briefings will be classified. Hallie.
Gabe Gutierrez at the White House. Thank you. We are also watching the markets tonight with oil prices now surging after the attack. Christine Romans is monitoring this for us. Christine, what are we seeing?
Yeah, big reaction so far here, Hallie. Oil prices surging as world markets are getting their first chance to react to those strikes on Iran. What happens in this region, of course, is critical for the price of oil around the world. Iran is an oil producer, a big oil producer, but because of punishing sanctions, most of its oil goes to China. But more importantly here, the Strait of Hormuz is that critical passageway. Hallie, 20% of the world's oil passes through there every day.
Christine, can't talk about oil prices without also talking about gas prices. What is the expectation on that front here at home?
Yeah, spiking oil prices will quickly translate into higher prices at the pump for American drivers. Look at it this way. A $1 rise in crude oil prices generally means up to 2.5 cents more for a gallon of gasoline. So quick math, a $10 spike in oil would be up to 25 cents more for a gallon of gasoline. Experts say those higher prices at the pump, they could happen in a matter of days. How long they last depends on how this conflict plays out. And Hallie, as this crisis unfolds, several major shipping companies have told us they're holding their super tankers outside of the strait. They're dropping anchor on dozens of ships. Also tonight, the group of countries known as OPEC Plus says it's going to agree to a modest increase in oil production next month as all of this plays out, Hallie.
A lot of dynamics there. Christine Romans, thanks for being all over all of it. Still ahead for us tonight, the deadly mass shooting at a bar in Texas, possibly terror related. So could it have anything to do with those strikes in Iran? Plus, the domino effect on travel with passengers around the world now stranded.
So the videos I saw, the Iranians were celebrating, talking about their freedom. Let's see.
New developments tonight in a deadly mass shooting in Texas, possibly terror related, with questions on whether it may have been connected to the fighting in Iran. Priscilla Thompson is at the scene in Austin with a warning. Some of the video you're about to see is disturbing.
Terrifying moments inside an Austin bar.
Somebody advising there's an active shooter.
As a gunman opened fire in the busy downtown entertainment district, killing 2 people and injuring 14 others. Here, you can see people inside Buford's Beer Garden taking cover.
Hey, close the doors.
Multiple law enforcement officials telling NBC News the gunman wearing a sweatshirt that said "Property of Allah" over a shirt with an Iranian flag theme started shooting around 2 a.m.
What did you hear? How many shots?
Yeah, the first time, definitely over a dozen, probably 15 plus, just at successions, bang, bang, bang.
And at the intersection, he was shot and he was killed.
4 sources familiar with the investigation identifying the suspect as a 53-year-old naturalized citizen from Senegal.
It's still way too early in the process to determine an exact motivation, but there were indicators that on the subject and in his vehicle that indicate potential nexus to terrorism.
The shooting comes amid heightened tensions across the country after the U.S. conducted military operations in Iran. Investigators have not linked the shooting to the conflict. Texas Governor Greg Abbott with this warning, writing to anyone who thinks about using the current conflict in the Middle East to threaten Texans or our critical infrastructure. Understand this clearly. Texas will respond with decisive and overwhelming force to protect our state.
Priscilla is joining us now live in Austin. And Priscilla, some of the bars and restaurants there are getting ready to reopen tonight, but they're going to add more security, right?
That's right, Hallie. There are FBI agents who have been on the ground going back and forth to that FBI vehicle as they are continuing to comb this scene. We are also told that there is going to be increased patrols and law enforcement presence in this area. Hallie?
Priscilla Thompson, thank you. We are back in a moment with the airports in chaos and the passengers stranded a world away from home after the Iranian strikes paralyzed some commercial travel. To the chaos at airports around the world with these weekend strikes, leaving passengers stranded trying to get home. Here's Valerie Castro.
Tonight, travel chaos rippling around the world. Major airports in the Middle East shut down after Iran fired a barrage of missiles and drones at countries in the Gulf. The region, a major travel hub, more than 1,500 flights to the Middle East canceled. Travelers worldwide impacted from Lebanon to India, even France and Germany. Massive crowds in Doha scrambling to figure out their next move.
People at the front of the line up there are waiting 3 hours just to get the voucher.
While at Dubai International Airport, passengers were evacuated after it was attacked. And Kuwait's airport also suffering heavy damage and a partial collapse. Multiple airlines pausing all travel after Iran and several Arab countries closed their airspace. Passengers left frustrated, scared, and stranded.
It's kind of been chaos here. All the airspace is closed here.
Oliver Sims was already in the air, headed back home to Dallas from Qatar when the flight changed course. He's not sure when he'll be able to get home.
But then all of a sudden the captain said that we had to turn back around and go back to Doha because Qatar Airways ordered all flights to come back to Doha.
Another American tourist, Sarah Gaither, now waiting it out in her Doha hotel.
I'm literally shaking right now.
As thousands more anxiously hunker down and hope to get out soon.
Valerie is joining us now from Newark Airport. And Valerie, some airlines are now closing bookings for new flights to the region at the moment.
Yeah, Hallie, these ticket counters normally serve customers flying El Al. That is the Israeli airline, but you can see they are totally empty tonight. The airline announcing it is suspending future ticket sales until at least March 21st while it works to get Israelis stranded abroad back home. Emirates Airlines also suspending its operations into and out of Dubai until Monday afternoon. Hallie.
Valerie Castro, thank you. When we come back, the flood of emotions from Iranian Americans looking ahead to what's next.
Interesting.
Finally tonight, with Iran facing an uncertain future, Iranian Americans here at home are watching anxiously and hopefully to see what's next. Here's Morgan Chesky.
For Iranian, but the world is going to be a better place.
Tonight, from coast to coast, a flood of emotions for the more than 500,000 Iranians who now call the United States home.
All the diaspora of Iranians are chanting and excited because we see freedom at hand.
A glimpse of freedom many thought would never come after a regime that's lasted nearly 50 years. Now, as Iranians look to the country's future, some reaching for its past.
Get back to how Iran was in the 60s and the 70s, and a democracy where there's freedom and people have right of speech and right of religion.
In New York's Times Square, one rally's message, "Free Iran," heard loud and clear. While in LA, in the neighborhood known as Tehrangeles, Iranian flags covering every corner, with locals brimming with hope.
Everyone's dancing in Iran.
The last time Shailene Farabi visited her cousins in Iran, she was a young girl. Now, for the first time in her life, she believes better days are ahead.
Do you believe real change can happen now, and how?
I think it will change. Life will be better over there.
And for Mother Seppi Maccabee, prayers that this moment marks a turning point.
We were oppressed, and my parents left the country so that my sister and I could have a free life. My kids get to see a free Iran.
Freedom that tonight feels closer, yet far from guaranteed. Morgan Chesky, NBC News, Los Angeles.
And that is nightly news for this very busy.
Okay, there you have it. Now, I purposely played NBC to end. NBC is considered left-wing media. And I told you, the Iranians are celebrating. What's next? I'm going to continue to watch. We'll see what happens. Iran being bombed by the United States and Israel over their nuclear weapons and other things. It's what's happening. I'm still praying for a peaceful negotiations so no more blood is shed. We'll talk about it later today. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. What are you guys saying? Show the people in Iran crying. I'll be back later to talk about it, you guys. I have to lay it down. They're celebrating. It's mixed emotions, but for the most part, they are celebrating. Hands off Iran. Iran attacked the United States. They've been attacking our ships. Okay? And I spoke about that earlier. No, they are not. Thank you, Smooth Carter. But I wanted to, because I can't. I wanted to show you guys what was happening, break it down for you guys, and we'll talk about it later. Let me get some rest. We'll talk about it later. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. They are showing you people that don't live there. There's mixed emotions on all sides. I'll be fair and say that. But for the most part, the Iranians are celebrating. They're celebrating. And I will keep you guys updated as we go on. How you doing, Ballastar? Yes, I got to get some rest. I'll talk to you guys later. Praying for the country, and I'm praying for you guys. Good night.